Okay, we're learning Nishmas Yita Bas Yitzchak Isaac, John Kelowitz, and Shomesh Haben Aliyah. Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on the Pei Zion Amid Beis, and we're discussing the different shiurim in the Beis Hamikdash with the Kalim. We discussed yesterday the dry, and today we get to the liquid. Sheva midas shalach Mikdash. There was 7 midas of liquid in the Mikdash. Hin, the chatzia hin, shlish hin. That's 3. Revius hin is 4. Loig 5. Chatzi loig 6. Revius loig 7. Reb Eliezer bar Reb Tzadok Omer shnasas hoya behin. There was Ruthie, please. You have to help Ruthie. Not you're talking so loud. Shnasas hoya behin. There was shnosas hayabehin. There was a one kli, and there were degradations on that. Ad kan lapar. That's ad kan la'ayel, ad kan lakever. So there was only one kli, and in that kli they had different degradations. Look at Rashi on the side shows you a little picture of these they setlach with measurement levels. Reb Shimon hin. There was not a hin. There wasn't a hin. It didn't exist. There was no such because it was only used once. The hin was only used b'mei Moshe to go ahead and be mashal the kalim. Right. It wasn't mishamish for anything, so they didn't have one. There was one in order to complete the 7. There was a kli that was 1.5. The mincha is kind gadol loig mechza b'boikev loig mechza b'nei. There's a total of 3 loigin. So they would measure 1.5 for 1.5. So he didn't have a hin; he had a 1.5. He had a 1.5. Tanraban. Seven midas shel lach hoya b'migdash. There were 7 midas of lach in the migdash. Revius loig. So now you're going down. You notice we're counting up, guys. Revius loig, chatzi loig, loig. Revius hin, shlishis hin, chatzi hin. So you went from the low part to the top part. Divi Reb Yehuda. Reb Meir Oimet, he goes from the top down. Hin, v'chatzi hin, shlishis hin, revius hin, v'loig, v'chatzi loig, revius loig. The Gemara is going to ask, my nafkamina. We just counted different ways, right? But at the end of the day, you had the same kalim. Reb Shimon Oimet lehoya sham hin. There was no hin. V'chima hoya hin mishamish. What did they use it for? Right? Now, esmi avi tachtav, according to Reb Shimon, what took its place, fellas? If you didn't have a hin, and l'chayra you need 7 kalim, if you didn't have the hin, you only had 6. So elamida yiserish shaloigu mechza haisa, he had a kli that was 1.5. Sham shabaho yemoide lechaviti kain gadol loigu mechza b'bayke loigu mechza bein harbayim. Basically mirrors the Mishnah. Omru loy chatzi loig haisa sham. Why did you need 1.5? Why don't you use a chatzi loig 3 times? In other words, it's all a matter of measurements. So I didn't have to have 1.5. I can use a chatzi loig 3 times. Says Gemara. So Amalahem after the vrechem chatzi loig. Why do you need a chatzi loig v'loig? Layaseh. Don't make a chatzi loig or a loig. Revius hoisasham. You had a revius. You could have to get a chatzi log, you could have 2 revius. In other words, to get a full log, you could have gone and used it 4 times. In other words, Ella, what do you have to say? Zeh klal hoya b'migdash kli shem mishtamish b'midah zu ein mishtamish b'midah acheres. A kli that you mishtamish for this midah, you can't use for another midah. So I had no option of using the chatzi log 3 times, and therefore I had to have one that was 1.5, 1.5, and that was instead of the hin, according to Reb Shimon. Now, this is the end of the brisa. The Rishonim say, there was like little degradations on it. On one kli, they had one kli, and on that kli, they had different degradations. Now, my ikabein Reb Meir Reb Yehuda. What's the difference? Reb Meir counted from the top to bottom. Reb Yehuda counted from the bottom to the top. Reb Yochanan berutzei midas ikabinayu. The foam at the top, is that part of the or not? Lemanda Omar, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Omar Mimata Lemaila, who would say you go from a smaller kli to a larger kli, Kasavar, Barutze Hamidois Niskachu. Barutze, the Barutze Midois is Niskadesh, and then when you're going to pour it, the foam is going to come up there. Revius, Virivia Yoav Rahman Alamaisha, Kodesh Baruch Hu gave, he didn't give all 7 kalim to Moshe, he gave Moshe Revius Ahin. And Moshe then used that Revius hin twice to create a Chatzi hin, and he used Chatzi hin twice to create a full hin, right? So on and so forth. V'amalei, and Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe, Shire, go ahead and measure the Ka'ayli Liberutzin. Go ahead, since the foam is going to be there when you go from small to large. The foam is going to be the niskadesh. In other words, you're pouring it in, and foam is going to stay within. Because when you go from large to small, from small to large, it stays within the kli itself. Lemanda Omar, but according to Reb Meir, that you're going mimaila lemata, you're going from on top, you're going mihin. Guys, if you pour from a larger one to a smaller one, it's going to overflow. So therefore, kasava brutze midas lein niskachu. The hin yav lein achmana, because Baruch gave him a full hin. L'moishe v'amalei shaya b'ha. And go ahead and be Messiah with this hin, make a chatzi hin or a viasa hin, and the kanafki berutzin, and the foam will come out. That's the nafkamina between the two. So like Rabbi Yehuda, the foam is niskadesh, and like Rabbi Meir, it's not. A similar idea. Abai Amar, the kuliyama berutze midas ikalamema skachu, ikalamema niskachu. This you can say either way, and there's another nafkamina. It says ushneim muleim soiles. Belula Bashemin. It says by the Nesiim, right? That there was Shneim Malayim Silas Belula Bashemin. Now, Belula Bashemin is considered a liquid measurement, and it says they were full. So the question is, what's the hakpada on full? You're going Reb Meir. You're going from the higher one to the lower one. Kasavar Malayim Yachsar Ushla. If you're going from higher to lower, you got to be very careful when you pour, and therefore it's got to be very, very exact, not more, not less. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're going from a smaller kli to a larger kli. You don't have to be so exact. As long as it's not missing. It's a little more, overflows, it's okay. So that's the difference between the two. Going back over the Brisa, Reb Shimon Oimer, hin, there wasn't a hin. Why? Because it was only used once. It was only used. The Shemin HaMishcha was a hin, and it was used to be to go ahead and anoint the kalim. Says more Shapik Amalu Reb Shimon Rabban L'chayra, as we would say, Reb Shimon Zog Zeyagut, right? He's saying very well, makes a lot of sense. So says Rabbanon. For Rabbanon, and what about the Rabbanon? Have a hin the Ovid Moshe l'Shemin HaMishcha, Dichsiv v'Shemin Zayis hin, Masavar, Kivim de l'Doiris lehavit tzarech. Reb Shimon says, since you don't need it for future generations, Lifi Shohu the Avde, they used it only for that time. The Ignis, and then it was hidden. The Idach and the Chachamim, Kivim the Havahave, once it was there, even though you never used it. So the hin, it was considered, according to the Chachamim, part of the seven. According to Reb Shimon, it was put away because it wasn't necessary, and therefore Reb Shimon replaced it with what? With a 1.5 hin. Amar Mar, 1.5 loik, excuse me. Amar Mar, the Atmi Avi Tachdav, and Reb Shimon, what did he take in its place, right? So what did he take in its place? We know what he took in its place, right? It says in where Sagi the Maili. Why do you have to put anything in its place? So good, you didn't use the hin. So you didn't use the hin. So you didn't use the hin. Why do you need a replacement? And the answer is Kidam Ravina. Gemiri, we have a Messiah. Halacha Mosh Misinai. Shtei Smichas Betzibor. There were 2 smichas betzibur, fellas, the Parhelim Dover and the Seir Mishtaleach on Yom Kippur. Those are the only 2 communal kabbanis that required smicha. Again, the Helim Dover and the Seir on Yom Kippur. Hachanami Gemiri, the Sheva Midah Shalach Hayu b'Migdash. We have a Messiah where there were 7. The Mela of Shimon had to replace. If you didn't have a hin, he had to replace it with something else. How are we doing? I know I'm going quickly, but it's pretty much straightforward. Okay. Rebbe Lazar, Rebbe Tzaddik Aimer, Shenasas Hoya Behin. There were degradations on the hin, right? For the Gemara, Lesle Sheva Midas. In other words, if he's using that kli multiple times, he's using it for hin, chatzia, and he's using it all the time, chatzia hin, so he doesn't have 7. So the Gemara says, Einachinami Lesle, he didn't have that Messiah on the Lachamash Misina 7. V'ibayis Ema, another possibility, my Sheva Midas, Sheva Mididas. When it says Sheva Midas, it does not mean 7 different kalim. It means 7 different measurements. Everything's good. Next Mishnah. Now we're going to go through what these were used for. These different sizes. What were they used for? Revius, my hoisa mishameshes. What was the revius used for? Revius mayim limit soira. It's the Levius Mayim Mitzayra. Fellas, the Mitzayra, they would go ahead, Chutz L'machne, they would go ahead, have two birds, and they have Mayim, and they have to, they shecht one of the birds, and you needed the dam to be nicker. It would, and we have that, what? That was Revius, that it was Revius Hahin. That was Revius, that was the Revius Hahin. Revius and Revius Loig. I'm not sure. Actually, let me look a second. Revius loig, fellas. It's a revius of a loig. Okay, it's a revius of a loig. So revius ma'hoisem meshemeshes, revius ma'ilem mitzayra, revius shemen l'nazir. The nazir had these two different types of wafers, and they used the revius of shemen. So they measured that revius loig was used for those two things. Chatzi loig. What was the my hoya meshamesh? What they used the chatzi loig? Chatzi loig mayim l'saita. The saita that they made the mayim ma'orim that she would drink. It was used from a chatzi loig. The chatzi loig shem l'toida, and the chatzi loig that was used for the shemen for the carbon toida. Ubaloig, why did they use the loig? The chol menachos. Like shemen, that was all the rest of the menachos. Afilu mincha shel samech isaroin, even a mincha that was the large of 60 esrainim, that's the largest one you could bring because that's the largest that the kli could hold. Noish la samech loig, you would give a loig, a ratio of one loig per one isaroin. Rabbi Lezer Yaakov Oimer, afilu mincha shel samech isaroin, ein lo ela loigad. He only had one. Even 60, you never had more than one loig shemen for your mincha. Because it says the mincha of the loig shemen, okay. Shisha lepar v'arba la'ayil shleisha lekeves. So the loig shemen shisa lepar. You had 6 loig, above 4 and 4 loig for the ayil and 3 loig for the keves. Shleisha mechza. And why did they use the shleisha mechza menorah? Chatzi loig l'chol ner. So you would use for the menorah you have 7, and each one had a chatzi loig. So you have a total what of 3.5 loig, right? You have shleishu mechzel menorah, 3, and mechzel menorah, chatzi loig l'chol ner. 7 times what? 7 times a half is 3.5. 7 times a half is 3.5. That's the, yes. Yes, Nassim.
Sorry. I feel the mincha shel samach isaroin, noisen le samach loig. I didn't get that. I didn't get that line.
Yeah, my machloikis between the Tanakama and Relazar of Yaakov, how much loig was in the mincha? So according to the Tanakama, it was the ratio of 1 to 1. So if you bought a large carbon of 60 esrainim, you had 60 loigim of oil. According to Rabbi Lezer and Yaakov, if you bought 60 esrainim, you only still had 1 loig. You only still had 1 loig. Welcome, Yehuda. You still only had 1 loig. You're on a plane? Yeah, you're in the plane already coming back? He's in the plane. Not in the plane.
I'm on a coach bus.
On the coach
I'm on
bus.
a coach bus.
Okay, great. Okay, so now you have the. Okay, we'll just mute you. Okay, anyway, we're good. Yosef Rebbe was sitting on Peiches, Yehuda at the bottom of Peiches Amid Aleph. Yosef Rebbe v'kokashale. Revius loma nimshecha. What was the revius used for? The revius aloig. What was it used for? Mitzayra. If it's for the mitzayra, chutzhu. In other words, these kalim guys were all klishares. These kalim were all klishares. But the klishares is used for inside the Beis Hamikdash. This is chutz, is outside, right? It's really, there's a, clearly outside means chutz lamachne where he was. That's Rashi b'ksav yad. Rashi in the Mefarish over here is shverlich, because he says, look at the top line. V'aloi b'chutz haya kol maisav b'shar nikna v'aloi b'azara. This wasn't in Shar Niknar. This was really chutz lamachne. It's a little shver. They cited a few places. I looked up one place. It was a Mishnah Melech in the Mitzayra that was like 3 pages long. I did not go through it. I'm sorry, but it's fair because really the Mitzayra is what is chutz lamachne, not chutz liazara. Bottom line, guys, it doesn't have to be a klishares. You're telling me that what? You had a revius loig for klishares. You didn't need a revius loig for klishares. It wasn't a klisha. It was outside the azari. You didn't need a klishares. And what was the next thing for the nazir? The nazir lechem nazir mishchitas ayilhu the kaddish. What infuses it with its kedusha? Not the kli, but the shchita of the shlomim, of the el shlomim. Fred the Gemara, you gave me two instances of the necessity for the revius hahin. You gave me two, right? Neither one is necessary. One, it's chutz by mitzayra, and sveitens the kedusha of the lechem of the nazir comes machmas the shchita of the shlomim, not machmas the loik shemen. So why do you need it? What? As I read the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Chia, shebocho yemoide lechavitin kain gadol. They use the chatzi loig for what? The revius loig for the chavitin kain gadol. Revius shemen lekol chala v'chala. A revius shemen for each chala. You have a total of 12 chalas. Guys, there were 3 loig, fellas, we learned this. There was 3 loig used for the chavitin. 3 loig of shemen. You have it, you had 12 chalas. 12 times about a quarter. There you go, you got your 3. So geshmak. So when Rabbi Chia said this, so Korele, Rabbi said upon him, May eretz merchak ish eitzasai. From a distant land comes the man of my eitzah. He gave him a big praise. He praised him. That we used it for the chavitim. Chatzi loig mayahim mishamesh. So we said chatzi loig, what they use it for? They said it for the saita. Tell us, where they get the water of the saita from? The kiyar. The kiyar. The kiyar was a klishares. It already was Shren Kaddish. So I don't need the chatzi loig. Frag the Gemara kasha. Chatzi loig mayahim mishamesh. Yosef Rabbi v'kokasha loig. Chatzi loig loma nimshach. Was the water chulin that you needed a chatzi loig to go ahead and be mekadosh it? The tzricha lekdushe mayim kedoshim ksev. That means it came out from the kiyar. What was the other teretz we gave? Chatzi loig for the toida. Ile toida lachme toida b'shchitas toida with the kachi. Just like by the nazir, it was the shlomim, it was the shchita. It's the shchita of the toida that infused the kedusha. So it wasn't the shemen. So we have the same kasha. What's the chatzi loig for? It can't be what for the saita, it's already kaidish, and it can't be for what for the taida, because the taida gets kedusha from the shchita of the shlam of the animal. And for the Gemara, Amalei Rav Shimon Baribi Sheboy Hoyim Machalik Chatzi Loig Shemen L'chol Nevener. The menorah needed ner each one a chatzi loig, so that's what you use the chatzi loig for. You didn't use it. That's where it got kedusha. Amaloi, Rabbi said about Rav Shimon, but Rabbi about his son, Ner Yisrael, Kachaya. Call him Ner Yisrael, play on words. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi, Ner Shekofsa, a Ner that went out on the menorah, Nidashna Hashemen, Nidashna Psila, you got rid of the shmutzi dika oil and the shmutzi dika psilas wicks. Kate said, Oisa, what would you do? Meitiva, V'noisim Bashemen, and you put Shemen in Madlika. Yosef Rabbi, Srika, Rabbi Srika become a boile. What's the Rabbi Srika? The Gimel must be a different name. Yes, Rabbi Zera, guys, not Rabbi Srika, Rabbi Zera. Yes, Rabbi Zera become a boile. Kashu noisim bashemen. After it went out, guys, it went out in the middle of the night, right? Let's say, fellas, let's say that it has a half, and it burns through the night, half the night. So you'd have a quarter left, right? You burnt a quarter of the oil, and it went out. So, shemen kemida rishayna or kamoisha chasra. Do you put in a full half a hin, or do you put in my scenario a quarter? In other words, whatever it is, you. Rav Yemia pshita the kemida rishayna. Pshita you're going to put in like the original amount. The I kamoisha chasra, because if you're going to go in and much of it was missing, minoya dina and my chiser, how would you know? The Mishayale, go ahead and evaluate. Guys, take a chatzi loig and compare what's left. In other words, I could do it. I have a chatzi loig, whatever's burning, go ahead and make a comparison, and you would know exactly what is missing. Right? In Cain, Sheva Midas, what do you mean Sheva Midas? Nafish Lamidas Tuva. In other words, you would have to have how many kalim to compensate for the amount, let's say, it brings this much, this much, this much. You need kalim for each one, and we know we have Messiah only 7. So l'chayra, it can't be al karchach by default. It has to be that you're going to go ahead and use a chatzi loig, or else you're going to end up with a bunch of kalim to compensate. Oh, 1 second, this much left, boom, this much left, boom. You guys, you got it, right? Says the Gemara. So kori aloha the hadarchotz. What's the pasuk? Let me make sure I say it right. V'hadarchot salach rechav al devar emes v'anvot tzedek v'seiroscha neiros yiminecha. So probably a pasuk very that and with your splendor you succeed. Itmanami Amr Bavo Amr Yechnon Vimilo. Again, we want to prove a chatzi loig. Amr Abba Amr Rav Chanina Amr Rebbe Ner Shekafsa Nitsha Hashemen, a ner that went out, you go ahead, Nitsha Hashemen V'Nitsha Psila, Ketzadai, so what would you do? Make tiva, you would clean it out, you would, right? V'Noisin Ba Shemen, and you put Shemen, how much Shemen? Kimida Rishayna Ud Madlika. You go ahead and you would put what? You put that amount in. You put, no, it's the original amount. I normally would go weiter, but I'm pressed for time. So Bez Hashem, this afternoon, the share will be this afternoon. We'll pick it up from here.